it's a kind of win. Hello, my lovelies. I hope you're all well. So you've probably already seen in the news that the publishers of Roald Dahl's very classic children's literature, which are brilliant. I've just bought the set for my daughter because I loved them growing up and I'm sure she will too. The publisher was set to change some language around in these classic books because of sensitivity. Now, we've kind of won because they've now backtracked and said that they are going to keep the original text in print, because what they originally planned to do was to just rewrite the sections and then only publish the rewritten ones, because they were worried about children reading the word fat and ugly and things like that. But they have now backtracked. So Puffin announces the Roald Dahl collection to keep author's print in text. They've said, we recognise the importance of keeping Dahl's classic texts in print. By making both Puffin and Penguin versions available, we're offering readers the choice to decide how they experience Roald Dahl's magical, marvellous stories. So that's their official announcement. Now, the reason that this really pissed me off in the first place, that they were going to do this, is how dare they take a literary genius's work, who has since died. He died a long time ago, so he can't argue against this. And unfortunately, his family sold the whole collection to Netflix. I mean, they got a lot of money for it, but Netflix? Anyway, yes, how dare some inclusivity officer turn around and say, oh, that's problematic. Calling someone fat and ugly is problematic. And then they were saying, like in the Twits, there's that classic bit at the beginning of the Twits that says, if you're an ugly person on the inside, eventually it's going to show on the outside. But if you're a nice, lovely person, then even you could be the ugliest person on the outside, but goodness will still shine out of you. Now, isn't that a wonderful message for children? To be good and kind, because that's what people will see. So it doesn't matter about your surface imperfections. If you're a good, nice person, people are going to see past it. And I think that's a lovely sentiment. But these publishers saw an issue with that. And they also didn't like the fact that some of the aunts in some of the other stories were described as ugly and fat and all that. But the whole thing with Roald Dahl's stories is he was writing about horrible people and also heroes, because there are horrible people in the real world and children need to be aware of this. And he wrote about it in such a way that it was so enjoyable to read and to just get swept up in that world. I mean, look at Matilda. That's one of the greatest books that children ever read. And her parents and the headmistress, Miss Trunchbull, are just the worst kind of people ever. But people love those stories because it's triumph over adversity. You know, Matilda, she develops this special gift to be able to move things with her mind out of the adversity of her life, living with those terrible people. You know, she overcomes it. And his stories are magical. And for some inclusivity and sensitivity person to turn around and say it's not for today's audience, I'm truly disgusted. So the fact that they're going to keep the original text in print is brilliant. I had already bought them secondhand anyway, because we've been doing that for a while anyway. We go to charity shops on occasion, and you'll generally find maybe one or two of Dahl's books in the charity shop. So I was already picking them up. So now we've got 2 copies of some of them, like Matilda and the Witches. But you know, they're classic books. They're never going to go out of fashion. Children have loved them since they came out right through till now, and children in the future will enjoy them as well. And the fact that they'll be able to get their hands on the original prints is a really good thing. So it says the classic collection will sit alongside the newly released Puffin Roald Dahl book for younger readers, which is designed for children who may be navigating written content independently for the first time. So they're basically insulting the intelligence of these children to say that kids these days can't ask their parents questions, or can't ask their caregiver or teacher questions. Like, if they come across something in a book that they don't quite understand, they're not capable of going and asking for clarification from an adult. They're just too damn sensitive, is basically what they're saying. So, yeah. But now, they're going after Ian Fleming. Of course they are. Of course they are. So we've got a piece here from The Independent. Censoring Roald Dahl and Ian Fleming has nothing to do with sensitivity. So Fleming and Dahl's books are at the centre of a furore over censorship and outdated language. Cancel-proofing makes sense from a cynical business perspective, but it lets everybody off the hook far too easily. So Ian Fleming famously wrote the Bond books, which have been adapted into films across the decades. So his hit spy novels are being republished with a plethora of changes to the language, following a review by sensitivity readers. Many of the changes concerned racist language, of course, with numerous racial slurs cut entirely. Other material, including derogatory remarks about Asians and an appalling reference to the sweet tang of the R word, were not censored. The news came just days after it was reported that Roald Dahls were being reprinted with a raft of sensitivity-related amendments. Uproar predictably ensued. The problem with all of this is these books were written when they were written, and people can still enjoy them these days. I don't care how sensitive you are. If you can't read a book without getting all worked up, then I just don't know what to tell you, you know? And of course the other problem is that these authors are both dead. They have no way to consent to these changes being made, you know? And like I said, with Dahl, his family sold off the rights to his works. So even though the copyright is still in place, they are able to do this, and I just think it's disgusting, really. And of course it throws up the question of what is or isn't suitable in these sensitivity readers' minds. You know, they're obviously looking at it and saying that you can't have the word fat or ugly in Dahl's books. And it's like, who made the decision that these are problematic? You know? And then people are bringing up the politics of the authors in question and their beliefs. But can you separate the art from the person? And I very much think you can, within reason. You know, there are certain people that have committed crimes against children, and you cannot separate that from the art, in my opinion. Well, I can't anyway. But someone holding beliefs that at the time that they were living are contradictory with our modern standards, I don't think is any reason to then go in and tear apart their life's work and rewrite it very badly for modern tastes. I just don't. But let me know what you think on this subject. It's a small win for us in terms of Dahl's work, but I don't know what's going to be happening with Ian Fleming's. It looks like it's just going ahead with the change. I haven't read the Bond books myself, but I'm of the idea that they were written how they were written, and if you want to read them, you can read them. If you don't want to read them, then leave them on the shelf. But let me know what you think, and I'll see you very soon.